Hi guys, and welcome back to another Sorry Girls video.
My name is Becky.
My name is Kelsey.
And you guys may or may not have seen that wildly viral video of that guy who fixes the sink with ramen.
There has been so much back and forth online. Is it real? Is it fake? You guys have wanted to see us try to fix things with ramen, and we're like, okay, challenge accepted.
I've seen people try it.
Also seen people fail trying it.
No one has figured it out. No one has explained it, which is all I'm asking for is how is it done? So today, we're gonna try and answer that for you.
Yeah, we're gonna do fixing it with ramen, and we're also gonna show some other ways that you can fix a similarly broken item so that you don't have to, you can eat your ramen instead of using it for a DIY project.
Yes, because we wanna teach you how to actually do useful things yourself, as well as maybe some fun, gimmicky, trendy stuff. So, should we get started?
Take it away, Becky.
Okay, so first up, I want to start right away with the ramen noodle fix hack, because I want to know. I got to figure it out. I got to try it. A lot of people have said that it's entirely fake, but I feel like there's something there. Whether it's actually doable and actually reasonable to do is another question altogether. I looked into this and we did a ton of research, and basically what I think it boils down to is that it's not actually the ramen itself that is acting as this amazing fixer for things. I think what it is the ramen is acting as a filler, which a glue can stick to and then creates this kind of thick fix. I think you can think of it in a way, if you've ever used wood filler to fix holes in wood, essentially it's a glue filled with a ton of sawdust and wood chips. And that's the filler, but it's the glue that hardens everything together that actually does the fixing. I think the glue that's gonna work best for this is a strong super glue. Basically, this is a liquid that when you pour it in, it's gonna dry rock hard and hopefully stick this whole thing together. I have a video pulled up where he's fixing a crack in a mug with the ramen and this mysterious liquid. I think that's gonna be a similar case to what we're fixing today, which is a broken vase that has a big chunk mixing out of it. This kind of made me think of the whole broken sink, which is why I think this hopefully will work. In the video, they are also using what I think is the back of sandpaper to hold the ramen in place while it dries. So we're gonna try that method as well. Basically, it starts by crushing up some ramen, putting in the sandpaper, and adding some glue. We're gonna start with that and see how she goes. Okay, I've got my sandpaper liner in place. Now it's time to move on to the actual ramen and glue. So we're gonna go slow, go hope for the best. Okay, oh, I'm so nervous. I want this to really work. Okay, let's go. Okay, so what I've been doing is just putting on kind of as much glue as I can in certain areas. And then I've made a huge mess, but taking my crumbly little ramen and just hoping it sticks. I haven't touched it yet to see if it's strong because I think this thing is so delicate and I want to make sure it's fully saturated with the glue before I do anything. But this has kind of been my process, just adding a bunch of glue, putting on some tiny crushed up ramen noods, and hoping it sticks, and just doing layers of this. Oh no, my noods.
Escape with the nudes.
My noods have been leaked.
Oh!
I was concerned that there wasn't enough glue in all of the cracks because the super glue is not super liquidy and it couldn't get over all of the noodles. So I thought maybe if we add a little bit of water to the glue and shake it up, then it would create more of a liquidy glue that could easily fill in all the gaps of the noodles. But then, oh my God, it turned the glue into a solid. I don't know, I'm sure this is obvious to anyone who understands science, but I guess the water cured the glue and made it dry very quickly. So I had a little bit of gluey water to work with that I was able to pour out, and the rest just became instantly solid. I don't know. Then what I wanted to do next was take the noodles and crush them up with a mallet so that I could make more of like a fine nude dust that I could sprinkle over and kind of fill in any of the cracks, because I'm just so afraid that once this is dry and I go to sand it, that there won't be enough condensed noodles and it will crack. So I'm trying my best here. I've got my gluey noodle mound sitting and drying, so I'm gonna let this just set for a little bit. So in the meantime, we have 2 other ways of fixing broken ceramics that we want to teach you, because we do want to keep this a little bit educational but also fun. So stay tuned to the end to see what happens next in my ramen noodle saga.
Right now we're going to try tackling the Plaster of Paris method. So I have my broken item here. Yes, it looks very similar to the thing that Becky is fixing because we found 2 of these at the thrift store. So my plan here is to kind of form a chunk of the Plaster of Paris putty, put it in here, and then I can sand it smooth and make it look very similar to our original piece. My first step is going to be to tape the back of this so that when I put my Plaster of Paris on, it just doesn't like fall into the crevice that is my vase here. So I'm going to first line it with some tape on the back side. So with my tape on, my next step is to start plastering. So I actually have this little bin here with some rocks, which we're gonna use in a future DIY, so make sure you subscribe so you can check that out. And I'm actually just going to place my vase here, kind of like in the rocks, and it makes it a lot easier to plaster. So to make my plaster, I have my Plaster of Paris here, and it says on the package to use 2 parts Plaster of Paris, 1 part cold water. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do now. And this stuff, you only have like 6 to 10 minutes to work with it. So you wanna make sure that you're not mixing up too much, that you're doing it quickly, and then it'll take about 20 minutes to dry once you have it all set in place. So I did 1 little mason jar cup of plaster and a half a mason jar cup of cold water, and then just mixed it up using a popsicle stick until it was an even consistency of like smooth, kind of liquidy peanut butter batter. And then I just used my popsicle stick to fill in my crack gap. I smoothed it out. I wanted it to be like pretty much level with the rest of my vase, but also I can sand it down. So if you want to leave it a little bit taller, just so that you're erring on the side of sanding it down versus not having enough plaster there, you can do that. Okay, now that it's all filled in here, I'm very excited. It's looking promising, but I'm gonna leave this for 30 minutes so it can fully dry before I start sanding it. So it's been 30 minutes and my plaster is now dry to the touch. It's looking good. I'm a little nervous with the upper rim. I don't know if I filled it out enough, which means that the rim might not be as thick as it should be. But my next step is to give everything a light sand, and then we can take a look at how it's looking. Okay, so I've spent a long time sanding and resculpting, and I actually think it looks pretty good. I was worried about things that I shouldn't be worried about. Classic me, anxiety. My next step is just make sure that there's no dust on this, and then I'm gonna give it a coat of some glossy spray paint to finish it off, and then we can really see how it holds up. And this is what my final piece looks like when it's all spray painted. I think it's pretty good. I mean, you'd be hard to tell where the crack is. So next up, we're going to tackle a very famous way of fixing broken items, especially ceramics, and that is Kintsugi. So this is the Japanese art of fixing ceramics with a lacquer, and usually it's like a gold lacquer in the cracks. I love the meaning behind this art because it's about celebrating and being proud of the history of the object instead of trying to like cover or disguise the cracks. Something we can all think about. The other 2 methods we've done actually work better if you don't have the missing piece. This method works really well if you do have the missing pieces, but you can still do it if you have some chunks missing. So to do this, I'm not doing it like the super traditional way, and if you want to learn more about Kintsugi, I suggest that you check out links below that we can leave you to learn more. But today we're going to be using a 2-part epoxy as well as some gold mica powder to create the same effect. Mica powder is a natural mineral that actually has shiny flakes in it, and when it's ground up, it becomes mica powder. And then you can use this in like many different things like resin or clay or epoxy, 2-part epoxy to make some Kintsugi bowls. So I'm squeezing out a 2-part epoxy here, and the way that epoxy works is that you mix these 2 parts together, and separately They're not sticky, they don't harden, they're not gluey, but when you mix them together, it's a chemical reaction and then they begin to harden and become tacky and act as a glue. So with my epoxy on a card, I'm just mixing that up and I'm adding a little bit of my mica powder. You can play around with how much mica powder you want to add. You don't need to add too much. I added like a couple shakes, if you will. Once you mix it all together, you can see that the color is like really coming through, so I didn't need to use too much of it. I just applied it to the edges of my cracks and then put in each piece slowly and carefully, building it up. And you might need to do this kind of like one at a time, because if you put them all together, they will kind of shift and move. And then to fill some bigger cracks, I actually just kind of like held my finger at the back, or you can put a piece of tape to fill in some of the larger cracks with your lacquer. And then I'm just using my rocks again to help hold it in place while it dries so that the epoxy doesn't run. All right, so I have my finished piece here. It's dried, but it is looking super questionable. So there's two things we're gonna do here. One is use an X-Acto knife to take off any large pieces of excess. And then for the things that are like fingerprints or small smudges, I'm just going to be using rubbing alcohol to take off any of those. So after scraping it for a little while and trying to use the rubbing alcohol, which I was told wrong, it didn't really work. I feel like it barely helped. I ended up just really using an X-Acto knife for most of it. I got it all clean, and the final product, I really love it. I think it's really cool, and I would definitely try this again with other things I've broken. All right, I know we've been all waiting for this, so we need to see how this ramen thing is gonna turn out. Becky, take it away.
Okay, it's been some time. The glue has set a little bit, so we're back to continue on trying to do this noodle ramen fix hack thing. So in all the videos, whoever was doing it used a chisel next to kind of shave down the noodles. I am worried that that's too aggressive right now. So I want to start just with some sandpaper and try and sand it down and see what happens. Okay, so I started out by using a regular sandpaper, but then I had to up it to a stronger grit sandpaper. And then I moved up to a file. And lastly, I went at it with a good old hand electric sander, because this stuff is difficult to sand down. That super glue is no joke. So after all of that, this is about as smooth as I could get it. And guys, I am pretty happy with this, but I have no idea how they get it so smooth in those videos, because at the end of the day, it's still ramen noodles, which are all curly. They're curly little boys. So like, they're never gonna lie perfectly straight unless they're filled with so much glue. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and put a coat of thick, white, glossy paint on this and see how we're looking, but honestly, I'm pretty impressed so far. All right, here she is. Looking a little textured, but we can't all have perfect skin, can we? I think if we qualify fixing it as it no longer has a giant hole in the side, then consider it fixed, guys. I would just love to know how this is actually done and how they get it so freaking smooth. If anyone knows, or you have any thoughts that you've been thinking about while this video is going on about how they actually did it, maybe a different way that we didn't try, please tell me below, because I'm dying to figure it out. You know what, I'm happy.
Me too.
It's not the most smoothest, perfectly beautiful thing that we've ever done, but you know what? We freaking did it.
Honestly, I was trying to research, trying to figure out how to do it. The answers were not clear. The demonstrations were fails. So the fact that we even got as far as we did is amazing, and I'm glad we could try out those other ways to try to fix an item, because I didn't know if those would work either, and I was pleasantly surprised by them too.
Yeah, so hopefully you learned something today. If you happen to have a broken item, maybe you know a little bit more now on how to fix it in the future. You can choose your own adventure on which method you want to take. Don't do the ramen.
Choose any other adventure. If you guys are new to our channel and you want to see us try other trendy things, other DIY things, more room makeovers, we do other things too, I promise. You can hit that subscribe button and you can see more of that.
Most of the things we do, we're actually fairly confident in how to do them, and we know how to nail them. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss future uploads. We'd love to see you around more.
And if you like it, make sure that you give it a like.
And if you love it, make sure you sub it.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, welcome to the End Slate. We love to shout out DIY recreations that you guys do. So giving a shout out to this gorgeous pendant light. It's matte black and I love the giant Edison bulb. It's so beautiful. So make sure you send us any DIYs you create using the hashtag SorryGirlsSquad on Instagram.